Today I'm going to show you the quickest, easiest way to overboard a ceiling. Now I did a video of this in the past and basically I'm going to show you an even simplified version of that. So we're not going to smash any holes, we're not going to use any props, we're just going to do this the most efficient way possible. Now let's crack on. First thing we've got to do is find the joist. Now I've already started setting the joists out where they are. Now the best way to find it is two ways. One is find an anchor point. Now you can go up to the loft if possible. What you can do is gauge your joists from where you're standing. So obviously I can see the joists, they're all exposed. But what I like to do is this. So I like to do, to save messing around, what I used to do is punch a load of holes in the ceiling, but there's two problems with that. This is a textured stipple on the ceiling. Now I don't know if this has got Artex, because anything before 2000, they used to put asbestos in the Artex itself. So this could contain a small dose of asbestos. Again, it's a small dose, so no matter what anyone says, it's always going to be a small dose, but it's still asbestos riddled all the same. So one, we don't want to disrupt too much damage on the ceiling. And two, there's probably an easier way. So what I'm going to do first is find the first joist. That's a bloody good guess, wasn't it? No, you're not going to do that twice. So I guessed it's either going to be close to the edge or inwards. Now, good rule of thumb, if you measure between 380 to 400 millimeters away from that, so I'm going to go, let's go for 380. As a general rule of thumb, the joist distance apart should be around that region, 380 to 400, give or take 10 mil either side of that. But if you want to use that as a general rule of thumb, then what that's going to do is give you a good gauge on where the next joist should be. So let's see if that works. Let's give it a go. This is 380. There we go. 380 to 400 is a general rule of thumb. So they do that all the way across. And then what you want to do is mark where the joists are. So I've got the first one here, and then mark across your ceiling line. Do that all the way across, and I'm going to do the next bit. Another good reason not to bash a load of holes in. Last week I was taking some ceilings down, and it was a lime Victorian property, old lime plaster, and ended up getting a massive infection. Now I've got a big sty. So anything you can do to avoid taking old plaster down and getting a load of dust in your eyes, the better. So basically I'm just going to run them through without knocking any holes, without disrupting the Artex, and potentially getting a load of dust in the air. Just going to get rid of all that. And then look, you want to avoid that bastard because it hurts. Now the board's up there. Now let me show you something. This is not square. So what we've got it tight in that corner, and then we've got about 20 to 30 mil difference. And it's showing on this side as well. The good thing about the string line is you can see exactly where the joist is, and then from that end you can see exactly where the line is. Now the great things about this, not only are we saving manpower, but by offering the board up without using props, we're up there, we can see exactly where it is. We can cut it in situ, bring it down, and then throw it back up again. So I believe these board lifters are just absolute game changers, and it was someone put it on to me from the last video. Knowing that this room isn't square, we can use a board as a straight edge, as a 90-degree angle, and we can work it into the room. And you know, you get so many people saying I'm sponsored, whatever. I'm not sponsored by these people. I wish I was sponsored by this company. I just like the product. It's easier to use, and it's a lot easier on the body, which saves me and you from killing ourselves. So let's crack on. Let's carry on with the video and see how we deal with this. So say there is a gap between the board and the wall. What you want to do is measure where the gap is, get the exact measurement, measure the distance from the wall to the board. So we've got 20 mil there. Gonna measure 20 mil from the other side, cut a line through and get rid of that. And then that way it should slot into place nicely. Good thing about a lifter, you can loosen it, just throw it in situ, put it where you want it. Got that edge cut. So now we've got the board, it's tight against that edge, and the board's cut to the rafters. So we've had to do 2 cuts, but it just means we've got a board that's going straight to the edges of the room, and which means it's going to skim without any chance of cracks. If we're going to start filling the edges, it's just another cracking point, which means a bit of weakness in the ceiling, especially with this Artex. So the next thing, I want to put all the full boards in first. I don't want to do the cuts yet. I'm going to put all the full boards in and then fill in the edges at the end. So let's carry on. What I like to do is get them all up first, put a few screws in to hold them in place, and then do them all together once it's down. So that board is in situ. What I'm going to do now is run another full board next to it, and like I say, do the cuts at the end. That way we're doing one job at a time, applying the boards and then fixing them all together. Now in an ideal world, we'd strip this light off, take off the cables, run the cables up to the ceiling, and then board a full board. But looking at it, our joist runs right next to that cable. So I'm just going to cut my board to this point, split the board into 2 halves. It would have been 2 cuts anyway because it's over 2.4 meters. So I'm just going to run the board from that end to the light, and then the same on the other side. Otherwise, failing that, the best thing to do is just take out the cables, put them in Wagos, shove them up the ceiling, and then poke them back down once you've got the board cut. That's what I'd do. But in this case, like I said, the joists run right next to the cable, so there's no point doing it. Let me give you a little demonstration on how this works. It's going to place the board up. You flip it, take away the pegs, you just wind it up. Now I can move it whilst I've got it, I can move it in situ, and then even adjust it. Best thing about this, rather than using props, I can move the lights, I can get everything out of the way, you can make sure that nothing's touching, because when you've got the board on your head and you've got 2 props, you won't be able to move the cables anywhere. This board just hovering in mid-air nicely, so I can navigate around this bad boy. I'm going to push that close to the wall, jack it up and see how it goes. You can move it on the board. I mean, as long as it's not tight enough, it doesn't need to be tight. You can angle it and move it where you need. And there, got the board in place where it needs to be. Now that's the last full board offered up. Now, a few tips about screwing. One, we talked about the length of screw. I've got a 75mm. Depending on the situation you've got, I believe it's better to have too much of a bearing in the timber rather than too little. The second thing, I'm using a combi drill. Now, I've had a few comments on the channel about using impacts with these screws. It's true, using an impact is probably too much torque on this screw and it weakens it. And if you ever use an impact when drilling into ceilings with these, you might realise that some snap. And that's because the torque involved isn't designed for these types of screws. So a combi is best. Slow setting. You can hear the pinch, but it's not going to over tighten the screw and weaken its properties. That's when they snap, and that's when they're potentially affecting how strong this fixing is to your board. So 5 screws for each row on a 1.2 meter by 2.4 meter board. The final thing is staggering the joints. We need to make sure that when we're fixing the boards, we're staggering the joints across from each other. That means that we're spreading the load. If we have boards cut at the same place and there's no staggered joints, then what can happen, it's an area where cracks can form. So last full board is up. Now, this isn't good for small boards. It's just good for the big boards. So by this point, you can just put it away. The question is it hard to put away? Is it a waste of time putting it up? Just take that off. And that's one. And you just wind it up. Let's put there, pull that down, pull this off. That's it. And then you got your wheels, fold together like this. That's it, 3 pieces. You've got your wheels, you've got your base, you've got your head. That is it. Literally took about a minute to assemble and take apart. And that's it. So that's going back in the van. Now I'm going to show you the other option on how to do boards if you didn't have this bad boy. Now the other way to do it is using one of these. This is a plasterboard prop. You can adjust it, adjust the height. It's got a little pump, so then when you offer the board up to the ceiling, you pump it up and then it holds it into place. Now you can do this without a board lifter. What you do is you have a prop either end of the board, pull it out, and then by the time you've got it where you want it, you jack it up. It's a lot harder, and generally speaking, it's graft. But that's what you want to be using for these little farty bits here. The board lifter's not good at this. So I've got the board cut into place. I lean the prop against the wall. I'll bring it up, jack it up, and then with one hand, put it where it needs to be. Offer it into place, and then when you've got it, pump it in the center, and then you screw it in. Now that is the other option. That's what you do if you haven't got the board lifter, and that's what you do with a little bits when you do have the board lifter. Now all we need to do is screw in that board, screw the rest of the area, and that is it. Now let's quickly talk about price. Now I've charged $5.90 to overboard and skim this ceiling. It's 4 boards worth, so not a massive area, but considering the state of the Artex before it, I thought it was a valuable price. Now if you were quick enough, if you were on it, you could probably get this tacked and skimmed in one day if you really push. Now I'm not that dedicated. I'm going to finish early and go home and see my daughter, but I find overboarding ceilings, as grueling as it is, there's some money to be made from doing it. And if you do it correctly and you do a good job when you're skimming it as well, then the customers are going to be happy. And not only that, you've created a product that is future-proofed and stronger. So that's it. That's how you overboard a ceiling. Now, if you want to know the next bit, which is where we're actually going to come to plastering, if you're brand new and you've never actually started plastering before, then feel free to join our welcome course from Plastering Beginners, where I will teach you the full process to plastering. We'll send you emails with videos daily, and not only that, you get an opportunity to see content that is not on YouTube, that's not on the internet, exclusive content just for you signing up. Now, that's the best way to learn plastering, but if you want to learn and just get a brief understanding, then click this video here. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you see you in the next one. I'll see you soon. Cheers.